Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2014 NFL Draft Prospect Rankings video. We're taking a look at the quarterback position. We're going to take a look at my top 10, some small school prospects, and some sleepers that you want to keep an eye on.
Teddy Bridgewater is my #1 rated quarterback in this class. His football IQ is off the charts. He knows where to go with the ball, and he's very accurate and shows great decision-making skills. The one area of improvement in his game is that he's a ball patter, which could tip off defensive linemen and defensive backs at the next level. But overall, he's as clean of a prospect as Andrew Luck was coming out of Stanford. He's so polished that his game looks boring, and that's when you know you have a guy that you can definitely depend on. And in my honest opinion and evaluation, it shouldn't be a question who should grade out as the #1 other than Bridgewater. Rarely do you see a redshirt sophomore this high in any quarterback rankings, but Johnny Manziel out of Texas A&M is a special talent. Reminds me a lot of Colin Kaepernick when he was at Nevada and where he is now as a player for the San Francisco 49ers. Great athleticism combined with excellent football awareness makes him tough to defend, and Johnny Manziel also has more than enough arm to make every throw on the field. The one thing that makes you worry is the hits that he takes as opposed to him running the football. I do believe he has to learn to get down or get out of bounds at the next level, as well as play with better pocket presence. I also believe both will come in time, as he has another 2 years of quote-unquote development time, because remember, he's a redshirt sophomore, but what skills you see now from him is definitely worth a first-round grade, but also can help you win games year 1 in the league. Jeff Matthews out of Cornell has everything that you look for in a pro quarterback: size, arm strength, and intelligence. He's also not afraid to make the tough throw, a throw to the cover guy, so to speak. He was also my preseason #1 senior quarterback prospect and has finished the season in the same position. What has plagued him throughout his career is his inability at times to move well within the pocket. His pocket presence right now is adequate, which leads him to take a lot of sacks. He also has to work on his touch, which is a little inconsistent at times, especially on short throws and deep window throws. But he does excel in the intermediate range, and I think if you take him out of the spread and put him under center, you'll start to see him improve in many areas. He has good movement skills and throws well on the run, so I think whomever drafts him will get a guy with tremendous talent that needs just a little polish, but could definitely be a starter at the next level. Derek Carr checks in as my #4 rated quarterback, and the first thing that jumps out at you is the fact that he has a live arm. So he forces you as a defender to cover every blade of grass because there's not one throw on the field that he can't make. He's a very good athlete, and his overall skill set reminds me a lot of Jay Cutler, from his strengths all the way down to his areas of improvements. His footwork gets sloppy at times, and that affects his accuracy, and he also has to learn to take some steam off his short passes. But moving forward, if he can slow his feet down and play with better technique in his lower body, I think he'll become much better as a professional than he was at Fresno State. David Fales out of San Jose State rounds out my top 5, and the first thing about Fales that stands out is his quick delivery and ability to both diagnose and deliver accurately and consistently with his passes. His major area for improvement is with his delivery. A lot of times he flatlines passes that end up getting batted down at the line of scrimmage, and he doesn't get good velocity on his deep ball, and in my opinion, both have to do with his technique and his delivery. He reminds me a lot of Ryan Tannehill in the sense that if you keep him in a spread system or even utilizing some pistol concepts, he can do well in playing small ball. But if you want to incorporate the vertical passing game, it'll have to come off play action passes. Otherwise, it could be a problem. But overall, he's a solid prospect nonetheless, and there's a lot to like about Fales. Blake Bortles out of Central Florida is an early entry in the draft, and I think he would have been better suited the start of the season at UCF. But I can understand coming out if the advisory board gives you a favorable evaluation on where you could possibly be drafted. Now, on the field, I like his athleticism and his toughness. And he's going to do what it takes to keep the play alive and also can keep the chains moving with his legs. What he has to get better at doing is not being a spot thrower, and that gets him in a lot of trouble at times and also leads to questionable ball placement and accuracy. His game, quite honest, reminds me a lot of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Great athlete, good competitor, but streaky, which is why I gave him a 3rd-round grade, and he has a chance to be a solid starter if he adds consistency to his game. Jimmy Garoppolo was super productive at Eastern Illinois and definitely has the talent to play at the next level. You like his release, you like his pocket movement skills, but you have to wonder about his inability to take shots downfield and the fact that he predetermines a lot of his throws. I think they are partly due to the offense he played in at Eastern Illinois and will have to be slightly broken down fundamentally in order to continue to grow in the right direction. Right now, he's Kevin Cobb as a prospect, meaning he'll excel in the spread short passing game, but could struggle versus press coverage and also make stick throws over the middle of the field. The raw skills are there, but needs a little bit more grooming before you can hand him the keys as your starting quarterback. Tajh Boyd out of Clemson is a solid player who reminds me a lot of both David Garrard and also Jeff Blake. You love his athleticism and you can't question his toughness nor his production. Now improvement has to come in seeing the entire field, because right now his anticipation isn't where it needs to be. Physically he can excel at all three levels of the passing game, but must be able to drive the ball better into tight windows and a little bit more consistently. After 4 years of studying his game, I think Boyd is a solid number 2 option and can carve out a long career and even start down the line. But with his overall skill set and the way he plays the horizontal game very well, I honestly think he could be a star in the CFL, but Boyd warrants a 4th round grade as a spot starter type of a prospect. Another productive player is A.J. McCarron out of Alabama, and as a prospect, McCarron throws with tremendous touch and shows excellent ball placement. He protects the football and displays good situational awareness. Now, where he has issues is when he's asked to drive the football over the middle of the field, outside of the hashes, or even vertically deep down the field. So he's a bit limited physically in what he can do, but just like Tajh Boyd, I think he can be an excellent spot starter and that you can trust because, again, he understands the situation and does a great job in protecting the football. Zach Mettenberger definitely looks the part at 6'5", 230 pounds. He's also improved over what he did last season for LSU. He's a very strong-arm, tough pocket passer, but he holds the football entirely too long and has inadequate pocket presence, which leads him to take a lot of sacks and forces him to get rid of the football quickly. At the next level, he has to improve his field vision and touch in the short to intermediate passing game. He reminds me a lot of Brandon Wheaton in the sense that he can be effective if the protection is there, but elite level quarterbacks have to be able to win either way, and that's why I've graded him out as a 4th round prospect. Now here are some late round value guys that you want to watch out for in this quarterback class. Keith Winning out of Ball State does a lot of things very well, understands the passing game, played a lot of football, very productive. He won't wow you physically, but definitely understands where the ball has to go and also has very underrated mobility. So keep an eye on Keith Winning out of Ball State moving forward. Dray Joseph from Southern University at 6 feet, 215 pounds is another top passer coming out of the FCS level, and Joseph led the Jags to a SWAC championship this season. He has good all-around game. What I like most from Joseph is the fact that he has great anticipation and also his pocket presence is where it needs to be. He's very accurate in the intermediate game as well as with the deep ball. He's a player that could get into a camp and stick because of the way he excels from the neck up. Definitely a player worth keeping an eye on moving forward. This year aside, there's still a lot to like about Bryn Renner from North Carolina. Before the injuries this season, I saw a decisive quarterback that threw the ball well on the run, and there's enough good tape out there to where if he checks out medically, he could be a steal in the later rounds. A solid starter for 4 years at Georgia, Aaron Murray has definitely seen a lot at the quarterback position and has been highly productive. The biggest improvement he'll have to make outside of returning from an ACL injury will be his situational awareness. You saw him take strides this season in that capacity, but there's still a lot more to be done. Now, physically, the arm strength is a question because of his inconsistent anticipation, but overall, Murray, I believe, can be a very good number 2 option at the next level because of his experience in a pro-style offense while at Georgia. Big fan of Corey Robinson out of Troy at 6'1", 210 pounds. Robinson brings a lot of Matt Hasselbeck-like ability to the table. He's quick with his decisions and shows good movement skills. And I spoke about him earlier in the month at the Medal of Honor Bowl, wanting to see him drive the football a little bit better over the middle of the field. But overall, I like his potential moving forward, and I believe he's another one of these quarterbacks with excellent CFL skill set that can make him a star up north. Brett Smith out of Wyoming is an early entry that probably should have stayed another season in Laramie. Super athletic quarterback that gives you that read option element to your offense, and despite having a quirky delivery, he anticipates very well. The only knock I see is that he's a spot thrower and more of a pitcher than a passer. He's a bit raw, so he'll have to round out his game in order to stick, but on athleticism alone, he's definitely worth a late round selection. Dustin Vaughan out of West Texas A&M at 6'5", 235 pounds probably has the strongest arm in this draft class. Here's a guy that can drive the football deep down the middle of the field and also deep down the sidelines with accuracy. He tends to overtrust his arm a little bit too much, and that could result into interceptions or bad decisions. And he also has to take a little bit of steam off of those passes because, again, they could result to tip passes, which then could result into interceptions. But when you look at a guy that has the raw skill set coming from a smaller school, you look at Dustin Vaughan, you definitely want to get him in your program because I do believe he has the potential down the line to be a very solid player. Some call him the A.J. McCarron of the FCS level. Brock Jensen out of North Dakota State at 6'2", 220 pounds. Here's a guy that has gotten better each and every year with his passing. At one point in time in his career, he was a liability throwing the football, but he became excellent as a senior, led the Bison to 3 straight national championships, and also is a very good athlete that can take off and make plays with his legs. So keep an eye on Brock Jensen moving forward. Another top prospect coming from the Division II level is Joe Clancy out of Merrimack. Here's a guy that reminds me a lot of Trent Dilfer when he was at Fresno State. Throws with tremendous confidence, can make every throw, and also does a lot of great things pre-snap as far as diagnosing coverages and making the right read. A lot of times, though, he tends to spot throw and predetermine his reads, and that could get him into trouble. That is something he's going to have to improve on. But as far as spending the late round flyer on Clancy, you can't go wrong because of his production and what he was able to do this year for Merrimack. And I'm a big fan of Kurt Hess out of Youngstown State at 6'2", 230 pounds. Hess is the guy that broke a lot of Penguin passing records throughout the course of his 4-year career, was very decisive with the football, and actually played through a lot of injuries as a senior. So when you look at a guy that has a pedigree, that has production, that understands the situation and keeping the offense on pace, you definitely want a spot on your roster at the quarterback position for a guy like Hess. So here are my final quarterback rankings for this 2014 draft class, and they're color-coded by round grade. There's only 2 first-round graded prospects, I believe, in this draft, and that's Teddy Bridgewater and Johnny Manziel. Only 1 5th-round prospect, I think, in Keith Wenning. Like I mentioned before, keep an eye on him. But in the 6th round, you get a lot of great value from small school prospects in Dray Joseph out of Southern, Dustin Vaughan out of West Texas A&M, as well as Joe Clancy out of Merrimack. But when you look at prospects 17 through 30, these are guys that I've graded out as 7th-round prospects, but there's still a lot of productive players that could have a lot of success both at the National Football League level and the CFL level. You look at guys like Logan Thomas, who had a solid showing at the Senior Bowl. You also look at Casey Paul out of TCU, played in the Medal of Honor Bowl, and if he is clear off the field, if his off the field issues are behind him, someone can get themselves a steal. But we look at some CFL prospects. I believe Denarius McGee out of Montana State has that type of ability, as well as Jordan Lynch out of Northern Illinois, the Heisman runner-up, could also be effective up north.